Hey guys, we have Sam, and today we're doing his favorite deck. What is your favorite deck, Sam?
My favorite deck of all time is Infernoid, just like any Infernoid variant. But this one's really special to me because it's what I got my very first regional top 8 with. It was Infernoid Invoked, and so that was a couple years back, and so I rebuilt it in today's day and age because I think we got a lot of good stuff going here. And so, yeah, I can't wait to share it with you guys because I really like this deck a lot.
So you're going back to your roots?
Yes, exactly. hoping
Oh.
for this YCS top. Maybe.
Oh yeah, baby. So we got YCS in 2 weeks. So you're excited?
Yeah, this is something I'm considering for the YCS. Not sure yet, but we'll see.
All right. So you won't play this, so people won't cite for this, right?
Right.
All right. So you want to show us the deck?
Yeah, of course. So, starts off pretty basic. We just got 3 Decatron. Anybody who knows anything about Infernoids will know this is your bread and butter. This card does literally everything. Basically, when he's summoned in any way, so normal or special summon, he allows you to send any Infernoid from the deck to the graveyard. He gains the name, he adds the level to his own, and then he also gains the effect in addition to that.
Okay.
So he's literally a built-in Infernoid. The only thing he doesn't do is gain the attack points as well, but he does everything. He gets the grave going, he thins out your deck, he is everything, and he's also a 1-for-1 target, which is super sweet. And he's a tuner, which is also nice.
Sounds good, man.
And then I'm just going to kind of do all these at once here. So we got just about every other Infernoid that are kind of what I call subpar Infernoids. I only play one of in this list. So all of these, they all kind of do different things. I'll do these 2 first. So it's easier to understand them in levels. So like anything that's level 4 or under, they share a lot of the same effects. So anything that's level 4 or under, it can tribute any monster to banish a card in your opponent's graveyard only during your opponent's turn for anything that's level 4 and under. And then they all have their own once per turn effect. So this one is Petrulia. He's a level 4, which is really nice. He once per turn just pop a spell or trap. He wants you to banish 1 Infernoid to summon him, which is another thing that all the level 4 or lower Infernoids share. And then he has the same one where he can tribute a monster, banish a card in your opponent's graveyard only during your opponent's turn. And then Harmadic is much of the same. He does the exact same thing as Petrulia. He's just a little smaller on stats, so he's got 200 less attack, 1 less level, and he only blows up monsters. But other than that, he's the exact same. Banish 1 Infernoid, can banish a card on your opponent's turn.
All right.
And then these 3... they all, like I said, they all share effects. So anything level 5 or higher, their effects become, instead of banishing only on your opponent's turn, you can do it on your turn as well, which comes up a lot. It's really handy. So, so that's their effect. So all 3 of these take 2 to banish to summon, and then they all have the effect where they can banish a card in your opponent's graveyard during either player's turn by tributing a monster. And then these 3, they all have an effect that happens when they attack a monster. So this one's definitely the worst, but he's part of the feast combo, so you have to play him. He just makes your opponent banish 1 from their extra deck. This one is probably the best of the 3. He, at the end of the battle phase in which he attacked a monster, he allows you to banish a card on your opponent's side of the field, non-targeting, which is super sweet. This is like my favorite one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And then this one, he's really simple. If he kills a monster by battle, he gets to attack again. So he's just like the big, like...
BLS?
Yeah, basically. He's the man. He's the man and the brawn of the operations. And then the last Infernoids we got are 2 Anunku and 2 Deviati. So these
The bosses.
Yeah, the boss. The mom and dad, as I call them. So they're the only ones that kind of are a little bit different. So these both take 3 Infernoids to summon. So you banish 3 from your hand or graveyard, summon them, and then they both have Anunku has an effect where when he's summoned, he blows up all the monsters on the field. And then Deviati does the same thing, except she blows up spells and traps, except not void spell or traps. So if you have Banishment or Imagination up, she's not going to pop those.
So you're protected.
She'll pop everything else. And then they have another really great effect, which is they can tribute a monster to negate a monster effect or spell or trap that's activated and then banish that card. So this one, while he blows up all the monsters, he actually negates spells and traps and then banishes them, and that can be from anywhere, hand, field, graveyard, deck, anything. So that's really cool about him. And then she does the exact opposite. She blows up all the spells and traps, but she can negate monster effects. So, when you're sending your Decatrons, your Decatrons essentially are just negates at that point if you send either of these 2 guys, and they're negate and banish, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then moving on, my little sub-engine here is the Invoked package is what I opted for. Like I said, this is my favorite deck ever. So Alistair, he's really simple. You summon him, you get Invo. He's like an Honest for your fusion monsters. It doesn't have to be an Invoked fusion monster, which is kind of important. And he's just a good normal summonable guy. Infernoids don't really normal summon except for Decatron, and in best case scenarios, you're not normal summoning Decatron. So he's a great little engine. And then, spoiler alert, I play artifacts, so there's a Scythe.
Yeah.
And then we play some hand traps. So I opted for these ones because they're the most versatile and they kind of do the most for this deck. Gamma and Driver, they're really great for this deck because they allow you to kind of play all your big bombs and not have to worry about being hand trapped. They're kind of like Called by the Grave in this deck, except they also provide a body, which is nice. And then, they just have the generic, like, I can negate a monster effect and kill the monster if it comes up. And then Ash is Ash Blossom. And it's a fire monster, which comes up sometimes. And then for some spells, we got the rest of the Invoked package. I only wanted to play 2 Invocations because it just sucks to draw multiples of, and you have so many ways to get to it. You've got, I'm just going to kind of do this all at once. You've got the 3 Meltdowns, the 3 Alistairs, and the Terraforming to try to find this card, and if you don't have Alistair, then this card's pretty useless, so I didn't want to brick on too many of it. And yeah, so Meltdown. So this card interacts really interestingly with this deck. So we play a card that allows us to fuse from our deck, and if this card's up, your opponent actually can't respond to it like at all, because that's one of Meltdown's effect. People think it's only the invoked monsters that you can't respond to, but it's actually any fusion monster that you summon. So that's something that's really neat. That's kind of where the synergy comes into play. So we always want to find Meltdown. Meltdown's really important. And then this is the fusion card that I was letting you know about. It's Void Imagination. This card basically is a Shaddoll fusion for my archetype. It allows me to send it to the graveyard as a continuous spell to fusion summon from my deck if my opponent has an extra deck summon monster. So basically, the fusion monster, it takes a whole bunch of Infernoids, so it essentially acts as like a grass. It just gets all my Infernoids out of the deck, and I'm able to just summon this big bomb, and I'll kind of go into that more later as it comes around. And then another thing that this card does is while it's up, it's not just a fusion card. It allows you to, all your Infernoids whose original levels are any higher than 1, it brings them down to 1. Because the Infernoids, they all have a level cap. If you have any effect monsters on the field that's level and rank adds up to 8, then you can't summon anymore. So this card kind of helps out with that problem sometimes, but that restriction doesn't really come up in this day and age where Link monsters don't have levels. This is Void Banishment. It searches you any Void spell or trap in your deck, so it can grab the fusion spell like I was saying. The most common target is Feast. And the great thing about this card is it's continuous spells. So you discard a card, add any Void spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and then part of Feast requirements is to send a Void spell or trap, and so this just does the whole thing as long as you have a card to discard. So it essentially is 6 extra copies of Feast, and then it can search Imagination as well, which comes up a lot more often than you would think. And then another thing about this card is it has another effect where if an Infernoid monster battles, you can send this card to the graveyard and then banish both of the monsters that we're battling rather than, send them to the grave. So that effect is kind of nice. It doesn't really come up super often, but it's really important to remember because sometimes it does come up. And then for the rest of the Void cards, we've got 3 Feasts. I would never ever change this number in my life ever because this card is just like what gets you going. Like it's the only way that your Infernoid engine is able to play is with the spells and traps, and this one is just the easiest setup tool. So basically what you do is with this card, you'll summon 2 Decatrons. So what it says is you send the Void spell or trap like I was letting you know before, and then what it'll do is it'll summon up to 3 Infernoids whose total levels equal exactly 8. So that's why we have to play this, because this one's level 6 and these 2 are level 1, and so that adds up to exactly 8. So you end up with a DD Crow, and then these 2, they typically send a Nunku and Deviati, and that's kind of, the bread and butter play is just resolving Feast, and then all of a sudden your deck is like really, really terrifying and your graveyard's filled up and everything's looking good.
The life is good, right?
Yeah, so this is definitely the best card in the deck, and this card's fairly new. It did not come out with Infernoids. It actually came out in the set with Zodiac in it. So that's kind of interesting. And then I play 3 Trap Trick because I want to see Feast really bad. And then if you draw multiples of Feast, Feast can actually send itself in the hands too. So seeing too many Feast is never a bad thing. And yeah, so that's why I play this one. And then I didn't think that it was enough to just have the 3 traps, so I opted to play the Artifact package as well, just because it's another kind of like bomb card that I can get with the Trap Trick. This deck is kind of just all bombs and ways that we're just trying to like block our opponent from playing in general. And you do have a surprisingly well grind game too, so the Sanctum definitely helps out with that.
All right. So how many cards are you playing in the main deck?
43.
43.
Because we play a couple of bricks like the Driver and the Sanctum, and so I didn't want to keep it at 40 because you'll definitely draw the bricks if you do that.
All right.
So moving on to the extra deck, the Invoked package really likes this 2-card combo now. I'll kind of show you what it does, but basically you summon Alistair, and then the normal summoned Alistair can be linked away into the Almirage, and then the Almirage can be linked away into the Secure Gardna, and then this is your light for Macabre. So all of a sudden your Alistair is just a 1-card Macabre now, which is kind of why I decided to play this deck with the release of Almirage. And so
that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And then the Almirage is like not that bad by itself. It actually like is pretty useful too, even if you just kind of end up like leaving it on the board for whatever reason, and it recurs itself sometimes. It would be more relevant if we were a more normal summon reliant deck, but we're not. So here we are. And then so I play Lambda. This card is really good because we're already playing the Psi Frames, and this is just kind of like a very good generic card as well. But we're already playing Gamma, so we might as well play this card, and we have a lot of room in the extra deck to kind of mess around with some ideas there. So that's why I play this card, and it makes it so that even if your board's already established and you still need your bombs to go through, if you make this card and you have Gamma in your hand, it ensures that your plays are safe, and then you end up just snowballing more advantage and more monsters and stuff like that. I really like this card. And then I play the Invoked Link. This one kind of just does the same thing it's always done for the Invoked archetype. It helps you add multiple invocations to your hand so that you're able to OTK sometimes. And that's kind of all it's there for. For those of you who don't know what it does, all it says is you discard when a fusion monster is fusion summoned to its zone, you get to discard a card and then add an invocation or the Book of the Law to your hand. And then and he's also treated as Alistair on the board, so you're able to banish him as part of the invocation requirements if need be. Like, for example, if you have a way to make him, but you don't have a way to find Alistair. And then I play these two. He is just a really nuts card, honestly. And then Doolittle. Doolittle is just really good in Infernoids because you have a Tondal, which can attack twice, and just having the 500 boost is honestly so nice sometimes.
And they're all fire, right?
Right, exactly. So if I were to consider cutting any card from this extra deck as it is right now, I would definitely cut this one, but I still really like the card. And then Hita lets you like link climb. It lets you, take resources away from your opponent sometimes. It's just a really good card.
Yeah.
Especially because we're all fire already. It doesn't hurt us. And then this card. So this is kind of interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but Ecomax is actually kind of an OTK enabler in Infernoids because if you have, like, for example, if you have a Tondal and it's pointing to here, then this Ecomax is gaining 4,800 attack points, or it has 4,800 attack points, right? But the problem is that, the rest of your monsters can't attack as long as Ecomax is on the board. So all you do is if you have any of the level 5 or higher Infernoids, you can just tribute the Ecomax and then attack business as usual, you know what I mean? So this card's like a really useful tool for Infernoids, and I feel like a lot of people don't actually know about that combo. And then that's it for the Link monsters, and then we've got some fusion monsters. So I play 2 Macabre and 1 Purgatrio. This card's always been really nuts in this deck. I really love this card. It's like my favorite invoked
OTK
fusion of all time. Yeah, and Macabre's Macabre. I considered playing 1 Elysium, and like if you're siding super polys, you can definitely bump the invoked count up depending on your locals. That's definitely something. You could cut like a Doolittle Chimera for a Raijin if your locals is all like Dragoonity or something like that, you know what I mean?
That deck sucks.
Yeah, the idea is there,
It loses to 1 hand trap.
And then we got Tierra. This is like my favorite card ever. The reason I play, so she's kind of complicated. So she says that when she's summoned, we summon her off the imagination. You can also invocation out for her, but that never happens. But it can happen. You apply these effects in order based on how many Infernoids you use in her summon. So the one that you mostly see the most often is 5 or more, because imagination says you can only send 6 from your deck. So that automatically fills that requirement just from having them in your deck. When she's summoned, she lets you mill 3 cards from the top of your deck. Both players mill 3 from the top of their deck, and then both players send 3 from their extra deck to the graveyard. So it kind of gets everything set up. It allows you to fill your grave. It allows you to use this card, Elder Entity Natitz. When this one is sent to the grave, you just pop a card. So Imagination turns into summon this guy, pop 2 cards, mill 3, send another Infernoid, because what I usually do is when I summon one, I send these 3, because you can still banish her to summon the rest of the Infernoids.
Yeah.
So just having her as an extra name is really nice. The only problem with her is that when you summon her, she actually hits the level cap by herself, so you need a way to kind of get her off the board if you want to keep going.
Yeah,
And
but
then
you can by link summoning, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then I also just play one Omega because I'm already playing the Psy-Frames and stuff, and this card's always been really good at Infernoid. Decatron plus Patrulia or Harmadic lets you make this guy and just have 3 Infernoids in your grave to kind of follow up with. It's definitely one of the weaker plays that the deck has, but it's still, you know, something kind of get going, because this guy still has like 3 effects. He's still really good now.
Yeah. All right, Sam. Well, thank you for showing us your favorite deck.
Yeah,
and
thanks for letting me
Infernoids.
share it.
I hope people like it. People learn the deck. People have never seen it or played with it. So this is Team X3 Drop, and this is Sam. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.